Japanese opposition lawmaker Shinji Aguma shocked the world with a fiery speech in the lower house, labeling US President Donald Trump an extortionist and comparing him to a mafia boss over his tax policies, which Aguma claimed pressured Japan. His remarks quickly dominated media outlets like CNN, Fox News, and the Japanese press, sparking widespread controversy. The speech heightened political tensions, with Japan's ruling party worried about its impact on US-Japan relations. Meanwhile, Aguma saw this as a chance to solidify his anti-Trump stance, even at the White House. Watching Aguma's speech on the screen, Karoline Leavitt, the youngest U.S. press secretary in history at just 27, was outraged. A loyal Trump supporter, Leavitt, known for her confident demeanor, decided she wouldn't stand for the insult and resolved to confront Aguma head-on during Global Dialogue, broadcast live from a vibrant Washington, D.C. studio. A joint program hosted by NHK and CNN set the stage for a high-stakes showdown. For Karoline Leavitt, this was more than just a debate. It was her chance to defend Trump's honor and solidify her place as a symbol of the MAGA movement. Driven by fierce determination, Leavitt prepared to face Japanese lawmaker Shinji Aguma, whose sharp criticism of Trump's tax policies had sparked international controversy. In Japan's lower house, Aguma's piercing gaze and steady voice condemned Trump's policies as economic coercion, accusing the U.S. of pressuring Japan into trade concessions. Leavitt, eyes blazing with resolve, stepped confidently into the studio, ready to turn the debate into an intense battle of wits, with the world watching her every move. Before we dive deeper into this electrifying clash, comment where you're watching from and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the latest stories. Shinji. Aguma likened Trump to a seasoned yet unethical card player, always scheming to extract benefits from allies. If we bow today, Trump will come back demanding more, like a greedy man never satisfied, Aguma declared, gripping the wooden podium tightly, prompting uneasy glances from some ruling party lawmakers. His voice grew louder as he criticized Trump's foreign policy, labeling the tariff moves as childish power games unfit for global leadership. Aguma urged the ruling party, specifically Economy Minister Akazawa, to adopt a firmer stance in negotiations with the U.S. Don't let Japan's kindness be mistaken for weakness, he warned, sparking murmurs throughout the chamber. His 15-minute speech concluded with a powerful call for Japan to defend its economic sovereignty against Trump's pressure, drawing applause from the opposition and anxious looks from conservative lawmakers. The media swiftly transformed Aguma's speech into a political firestorm, with major outlets like NHK, BBC, and Reuters dissecting his every word. In Japan, reactions were sharply divided. Some praised his nationalism, while others feared he was risking US-Japan relations. His remarks were seen as a direct challenge to Trump, igniting heated debates on political talk shows. Despite his emotional delivery and limited international experience, Aguma found himself at the center of a global media storm far beyond his expectations. Meanwhile, the stage was set in a dazzling Washington, D.C. studio, lights gleaming and the atmosphere thick with anticipation. Diplomats, economists, and international reporters filled the seats, exchanging knowing glances as they sensed the impending clash. The host, exuding authority, stepped forward and announced, "Welcome to Global Dialogue." Today we have Shinji Aguma, the Japanese lawmaker who sharply criticized President Trump's policies, and Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary representing the U.S. administration. Turning to Aguma, the host asked, "Mr. Aguma, you called Trump's tariffs a fatal blow to Japan. Can you explain?" Aguma gripped the microphone firmly, his voice resonating with passion as he argued that Trump's tariffs drove up the prices of Japanese goods, from cars to electronics, harming both Japanese businesses and American consumers. Trump uses tariffs as a tool of oppression, undermining the spirit of alliance, he asserted, citing a Sony factory in Nagoya that cut 10% of its workforce due to higher export costs, emphasizing that Japan was being punished for its economic success. Karoline Leavitt's gaze locked onto Aguma, her voice steady but razor-sharp as she responded, "Mr. Aguma, you tell a compelling story, but economics demands facts. She pointed to the 2019 US-Japan trade agreement, which opened Japan's markets to US agricultural products, boosting exports by 40% and creating 50,000 jobs for both nations. Tariffs aren't punishment, she concluded confidently. They address decades-long trade imbalances. Leavitt countered swiftly. You mentioned Sony's layoffs, but are you aware Sony expanded its Texas plant, creating 3,000 jobs thanks to Trump's tax incentives? Her words stirred murmurs in the audience, her confidence unshaken. She pressed on, noting that in 2018, Japan held a $70 billion trade surplus with the US, while Trump aimed for a fairer relationship, one that allowed Japan to benefit from increased exports to states like Iowa and Nebraska. Aguma fired back, his tone sharpening as he argued that Trump's tariffs had raised Mazda car prices by 15% in the US, burdening American consumers, and pointed to a California Mazda dealership that lost 20% of its sales. This proves Trump doesn't care about allies, he asserted, attempting to reclaim control of the debate. Leavitt, unfazed, responded instantly. Mr. Aguma, you mentioned Mazda, but did you know Mazda built a new plant in Alabama, investing $1.6 billion and creating 4,000 jobs? Tariffs spurred Japan's direct investment in the US, not destruction. She presented further evidence, highlighting that in 2020, tariffs helped reduce the US trade deficit with Japan to $55 billion, the lowest in a decade. Leavitt continued firmly. This levels the playing field for American workers. Locking eyes with Aguma, she challenged. You claim Trump disregards allies, but if that's true, why did Japan still sign a trade deal with the US? Or are you just stirring controversy? Her words sparked applause, the studio echoing with energy. Aguma attempted a rebuttal, arguing that tariffs hurt supporting industries like semiconductors, forcing companies like Toshiba to raise prices. But his vague claims lacked specifics, weakening his argument. Leavitt seized the opportunity and fired back. You mentioned Toshiba, but let's look at the facts. Toshiba partnered with Intel in an Oregon joint venture to produce advanced chips. Thanks to Trump's incentives, do deny this benefit. Her voice was steady and full of conviction. Tariffs are leverage to make Japan negotiate seriously. Without that pressure, would Japan have cut beef import tariffs from 38% to 9%? That's a win for American farmers and Japanese consumers. She paused, flashing a confident smile. Mr. Aguma, economics isn't driven by complaints. Do you have data to refute these figures? Aguma hesitated, twisting the microphone as his eyes wavered. He repeated that tariffs raised living costs but failed to provide new evidence, leaving the audience visibly restless. The host stepped in, turning to Aguma and asking, "What do you propose to improve trade relations?" Aguma suggested that Japan should explore new markets in Southeast Asia to reduce its dependence on the US. Leavitt immediately countered, Mr. Aguma, Southeast Asia has potential, but the US remains Japan's largest trade partner, accounting for 20% of its exports. Are you really willing to abandon an alliance that has created millions of jobs for Japan? Her words ignited loud applause that filled the studio. She pressed further, presenting new evidence. In 2021, thanks to Trump's trade policies, Japan's steel exports to the US rose by 12% after renegotiated tariffs. This proves tariffs foster cooperation, not destruction. Locking eyes with Aguma, she challenged, "You call Trump an oppressor, but can you name a single country that secured a fairer trade deal with Japan?" As the debate segment concluded, it was clear Leavitt dominated, armed with data, fresh evidence, and sharp questions that left Aguma visibly unsettled, his eyes avoiding the crowd. The host moved to transition to the next topic, but the studio's charged atmosphere hinted at even fiercer clashes to come. The host shifted gears, his tone firm. "Mr. Aguma, you claim Trump weakens the US-Japan alliance. Please explain." Aguma cleared his throat, scanning the audience as he tried to regain his footing. He argued that Trump had turned the alliance into a financial transaction, pressuring Japan to increase funding for US military bases. Trump treats Japan like a trade partner, not a strategic ally, he said, his voice low but assertive. He highlighted Trump's demand for Japan to double its budget for US bases, claiming it strained Japan's finances and hurt its national pride. Some Japanese audience members nodded subtly, whispering in agreement. Leavitt listened intently, her fingers tapping the table as she calculated her response. When it was her turn, she stood up confidently, her voice steady and clear. Mr. Aguma, you speak of pride, but alliances are built on commitments, not emotions, she began. She pointed to U.S. bases like Kadena and Okinawa, which serve as crucial defense points protecting Japan from China's threats in the South China Sea. When China expanded military outposts in the Paracels, who deployed patrol ships to ensure free navigation? The U.S. under Trump's leadership, she stated firmly. American audience members rose to their feet, their applause thundering through the studio as Leavitt pressed on. You say Trump imposes a financial burden, but Japan spends less than 1.5% of its GDP on defense, while the U.S. spends over 4% to protect allies. Is that fair? Leavitt's question hung in the air, and the audience murmured, sensing the weight of her argument. American spectators raised their hands in approval, their cheers echoing through the studio. Leavitt pressed on. Trump asked Japan to share the burden, just like Australia, which increased funding for its Darwin base by 10% in 2021. That's a sign of a strong alliance, not a weak one. Aguma stepped forward, his voice growing tenser. He argued that Trump's public criticism of Japan for not contributing enough to regional security had damaged bilateral ties, recalling how Trump once said Japan must pay for U.S. military presence, which had offended the Japanese government. Alliances need respect, not threats, he added, trying to garner sympathy. Some Japanese audience members murmured in agreement, but their voices quickly faded as Leavitt countered sharply. You speak of offense, but look at the facts. In 2020, the US and Japan signed a space cooperation agreement to share satellite data, allowing both countries to monitor China's activities in the Pacific. That's respect. That's partnership. She paused, allowing the audience to feel the strength of her words. Trump pushed Japan to be a pillar in Asia's strategy, she concluded. Not a passive partner, Leavitt asserted, as American audience members stood and chanted her name in support. Aguma attempted to respond, arguing that Trump's financial demands had hindered Japan's ability to invest in domestic defense technology, such as missile defense systems, and citing how the budget for a new radar project had been cut due to rising base costs. Seizing the opportunity, Leavitt fired back. Mr. Aguma, you mentioned radar. The U.S. helped Japan upgrade its Aegis systems on Congo ships, boosting Japan's ability to intercept North Korean missiles. You call that weakening the alliance? She pressed on, offering fresh evidence. In 2021, Trump approved joint training for Japan's self-defense forces with U.S. Marines in Guam, enhancing joint combat capabilities. This shows U.S. investment in Japan's strength. Leavitt turned to Aguma, challenging him further. You say Trump sees Japan as a trade partner, but can you name one action that harmed Japan's security? The American audience erupted in cheers, drowning out everything else. The host quickly interjected. Mr. Aguma, what do you propose to strengthen the alliance? Aguma suggested deeper cooperation with India to reduce reliance on the U.S. Leavitt reacted instantly. India is a great partner, but when China threatens Mala Strait shipping, who deploys carriers? The U.S., not India, Leavitt's words rang out as applause roared through the studio. Her voice rose with conviction. Trump reshaped the alliance to tackle global challenges. In 2022, the U.S. and Japan co-developed anti-missile laser technology, strengthening defenses for both. She backed up her argument with more evidence. The U.S. also supported Japan's entry into the expanded Five Eyes intelligence network, sharing critical data on China's naval activity. That's trust, not pressure. Then she turned to Aguma, challenging him directly. Mr. Aguma, if Trump weakened the alliance, why did Japan agree to collaborate on unmanned submarine programs with the U.S.? The American audience erupted in applause, many raising their hands in support. Aguma tried to counter, arguing that Trump's push for Japan to buy more U.S. weapons had increased military dependence. He claimed the pressure to purchase Patriot missile systems hindered Japan's domestic tech development. Leavitt responded sharply. You mentioned Patriot. Japan integrated Patriot into its defense systems, reducing the risk from Chinese missiles. Trump didn't enforce. He offered security solutions. She emphasized the strength of the alliance. The U.S.-Japan alliance is the bedrock of peace in Asia. Leavitt highlighted how the U.S. helped Japan modernize its military, from its destroyers to the Global Hawk drone. She closed with a Gen Z flair, addressing Aguma directly. Mr. Aguma, alliances aren't playgrounds for whining. If you want to criticize, bring facts, not stories. The American audience erupted, roaring with enthusiasm, their cheers drowning out the faint murmurs from the Japanese side. Aguma, sweat glistening on his forehead, tried to remain stoic, but his eyes betrayed his struggle. The Washington, D.C. studio lights still blazed, and the room buzzed with energy as the debate on the U.S.-Japan alliance lingered in the air. Aguma sat tensely, his hands gripping the table's edge for support, while Leavitt exuded confidence, her eyes gleaming like a warrior preparing to land the final blow. The host shifted to a new topic. Mr. Aguma, you claim Trump puts Japan in a tough regional spot, forcing it to seek other partners. Please clarify. Aguma responded, his voice striving for firmness. Trump's America First policy strips Japan of its leadership role in Asia, he argued, stressing that U.S. pressure hinders Japan's relations with China and South Korea. Trump's anti-China initiatives have pushed Japan into confrontation, he concluded, harming reconciliation efforts with Beijing. Aguma said, his voice firm. Leavitt, unblinking, tilted her head, as if carefully weighing his words. Mr. Aguma, Japan isn't a victim, but a powerhouse Trump empowered to shine, she responded, her voice vibrant and full of conviction. She then presented evidence. Japan led the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, shaping Asian trade after the U.S. withdrew. Trump trusted Japan to lead, not follow. She pressed on. You want to work with China when China has built 20 illegal military outposts in the South China Sea. Japan needed the U.S. to protect regional interests. The audience murmured, sensing the strength of her argument. Leavitt continued, emphasizing, Trump supported Japan's influence, like the $2 billion in funding for Southeast Asian port projects, helping Japan counter China's Belt and Road Initiative. Aguma's face flushed with frustration as he responded. More aggressively, Trump makes Japan-South Korea reconciliation harder, citing the 2019 semiconductor trade dispute, where Trump didn't intervene, escalating tensions. Japan needs autonomy, not to be dragged into U.S. confrontation lines, he asserted, hoping to win audience sympathy. Leavitt, eyes sharp, responded instantly. Trump didn't drag Japan, he gave Japan a chance to lead, referencing the 2023 U.S.-Japan-South Korea summit, where Japan advanced trilateral cybersecurity cooperation. Japan isn't trapped. It's shaping the region's future through the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC Forum. The audience erupted into applause, the atmosphere electric. Aguma attempted to reply, his voice shaky. Japan's joint patrols near the Senkaku Islands provoked strong Chinese reactions, risking conflict for Japan. In 2022, Chinese ships' increased presence near the Senkaku worried Japanese fishermen. His vague argument frustrated the audience. You're concerned about it. Leavitt began, her voice cutting through his, signaling the start of a sharper rebuttal. Leavitt's voice cut through the tension. Senkaku, Mr. Aguma, she said sharply. Trump strengthened the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty, committing to defend the Senkaku Islands. Do you want Japan to face China alone? She pressed on. In 2021, Trump supported Japan's $1.5 billion funding for solar energy projects in Thailand, further elevating Japan's role in Asia. Leavitt then challenged him directly. You say Trump diminished Japan's position, but can you name one regional initiative Japan was excluded from? Aguma's eyes darted, his hand rubbing his chin nervously. The host turned to him asking, Mr. Aguma, what should Japan do to boost its regional role? Aguma responded with a proposal for an independent Asian alliance free from U.S. reliance. An Asian alliance? Leavitt shot back, her tone incredulous. When China threatens the Taiwan Strait, the U.S. provides Japan with satellite data. Do you think a new alliance can replace that? Applause echoed through the studio as Leavitt continued. In 2023, Japan co-hosted the G7, leading Asian climate change policies with Trump's backing. She offered new evidence. The U.S. supported Japan in securing 5G network projects in the Philippines, helping Japan counter China's Huawei. Leavitt pressed further. Mr. Aguma, if Trump hinders Japan, why does Japan lead the region in initiatives like these? Aguma tried to argue that Trump's pressure forced Japan to hike military spending, cutting regional aid budgets, including an education aid program in Cambodia. You mentioned aid, Leavitt replied confidently. In 2022, Trump backed Japan's expansion of the JDS technical training program in Laos, training 3,000 experts. You call that obstruction? Her voice brimmed with assurance. Mr. Aguma, Japan doesn't need permission to shine. Trump paved the way. Do you dare to step up? The studio buzzed with energy, the audience breathless as the host introduced the next topic, promising an even fiercer showdown. After 3 intense debates, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Aguma sat rigidly, his gaze wavering, hands trembling slightly, while Leavitt leaned forward gracefully, her eyes sharp and lips curved in a confident smile. The host then asked, Mr. Aguma, you called Trump an extortionist and unfit to lead. Please, clarify your stance. Aguma took a deep breath, his voice striving to regain strength. Trump lacks the qualities of a global leader, he began, emphasizing that Trump's legal battles over financial fraud and personal conduct had damaged America's credibility. A New York lawsuit over tax fraud cost Trump the trust of allies. Like Japan, Aguma claimed, leadership requires ethics, but Trump brings only chaos, he asserted. Leavitt, her gaze steady, tilted her head as if carefully analyzing each word. Mr. Aguma, you want to talk about qualities? Trump is a leader of action, not empty words, she replied. She cited evidence. Trump negotiated the Abraham Accords, achieving historic peace between Israel and Arab nations, a feat previous leaders couldn't accomplish. That's leadership, delivering real results. She immediately challenged him. You mentioned the New York lawsuit. Those allegations are still under trial. But do you have evidence they've impacted Trump's foreign policy? The audience murmured, sensing the strength of her argument. Leavitt emphasized, Trump led America to the lowest unemployment rate. In 50 years before the pandemic, 3.5%, creating jobs for millions, including Asian American communities. Aguma tried to regain ground, his voice lowering with criticism. Trump divides allies with reckless statements, he said, citing Trump calling G7 leaders weak at a 2018 summit, which offended Japan. A true leader builds trust, not destroys it, he asserted, hoping to evoke sympathy from the audience. Trump speaks plainly, and that's his strength, Leavitt said, citing evidence. In 2020, Trump persuaded G7 allies to increase WH contributions, reforming the organization for greater transparency during the pandemic. Japan benefited from that transparency with $200 million in WH health funding for Asia. The audience clapped, the atmosphere heating up. Aguma grew tense, arguing that Trump's erratic leadership style made allies like Japan question America's reliability. Trump's threats to withdraw troops from South Korea left Japan wondering if the U.S. was truly committed to Asia, he said. His vague argument frustrated the audience. You're concerned about commitment? Leavitt asked, her voice sharp. In 2021, Trump bolstered U.S. Ronald Reagan's deployment in the Western Pacific, sending a strong signal to China. That's the reliability Japan needs. Leavitt didn't stop. Her voice brimming with energy, she continued. Trump led a global effort against China's trade manipulation, protecting allies like Japan. She added new evidence. In 2020, Trump launched the Global Supply Chain Alliance, helping Japan reduce reliance on China. Chinese semiconductors ensuring tech security, Leavitt said, challenging Aguma. Mr. Aguma, you say Trump lacks ethics, but can you name a leader who's brought more stability to Japan? The host then asked, Mr. Aguma, what do you expect from a global leader? Aguma responded that leadership requires humility and cooperation, not confrontation like Trump's. Leavitt shot back. When China blocked rare earth exports to Japan in 2019, Trump helped Japan build an alternative supply chain in Australia. That's real cooperation. The audience stood cheering, some shouting in support. Leavitt continued. In 2019, Trump led the Global Security Summit, pushing Japan to join a transnational cybercrime initiative. She offered new evidence. The U.S. supported Japan's AI research center in Tokyo, boosting Japan's tech standing against China, she pressed. Mr. Aguma, if Trump's unreliable, why does Japan still partner with the U.S. in these initiatives? Aguma tried to argue that Trump's personal scandals tarnished America's image, making it hard for Japan to see the U.S. as a respectable partner. He cited allegations of inappropriate conduct during Trump's campaign. You talk about scandals. Leavitt responded instantly. Trump led America navigated through the post-pandemic economic crisis, achieving a 4.2% GDP growth in 2021, benefiting allies like Japan through exports. Leavitt emphasized, leadership isn't about perfection, it's about delivering results. She challenged Aguma. Mr. Aguma, leaders aren't actors playing perfect roles. Trump moved Japan and the world forward. What do you have to compare? Aguma's eyes dimmed as he struggled to stay stoic, but his discomfort was evident. After 4 intense debates, the studio erupted like a battlefield, finally settling. The audience held their breath, eyes shifting between the two figures, the air thick with excitement and tension. Shinji Aguma sat with slumped shoulders, his gaze vacant, hands twisting a pen as if hiding defeat. Karoline Leavitt, in contrast, sat upright, her eyes blazing with a subtle smile, like a general who just won. The host stepped forward, his voice booming. Thank you to both speakers for delivering a fiery debate. Please give them a round of applause. Thunderous applause erupted, lasting several seconds, mixed with cheers from the stands. He turned out to the audience. Who's the winner in your eyes? The crowd chanted, Leavitt, causing Aguma to lower his head, avoiding eye contact. Leavitt stood, bowing to the audience, her voice warm. Thank you all for listening. This isn't just my victory, but that of truth in the U.S.-Japan alliance. The audience clapped again, many standing, eyes sparkling with admiration. Aguma, forcing a strange smile, couldn't hide his struggle. He stood, shaking Leavitt's hand stiffly, saying softly, You did well. Leavitt replied with sincere eyes, Thank you for a memorable debate. As the stage lights dimmed and the audience began to leave, discussions remained lively. A group of reporters swarmed Leavitt at the exit, microphones raised. Karoline, how did you prepare to dominate like that? One asked. Leavitt smiled, answering, Briefly, I relied on truth and faith in President Trump's policies. Her response made reporters nod, scribbling quickly. Aguma, in contrast, left quietly, answering one question briefly with, I did my best before disappearing backstage. Within hours, social media exploded with posts about the debate. On various platforms, audio Leavitt Aguma trended globally, garnering millions of interactions. One user wrote, Karoline Leavitt just turned Aguma into an unwilling spectator. She brought a data arsenal to the debate. The post quickly received tens of thousands of likes and shares. Another account praised, Leavitt didn't just win, she redefined political debate. However, some Aguma supporters countered, Aguma was cornered, but at least he dared to talk about leadership ethics. A Japanese social media user commented, Aguma represented Japan, but Leavitt was too strong. We need to learn to debate like her. Memes spread rapidly with images of Leavitt captioned, when you have truth and confidence, and when you know you're losing but have to keep trying. A prominent social media account posted a short video of Leavitt's closing moment, commenting, This is why Gen Z loves Leavitt, sharp and fearless. And the post received thousands of shares, fueling further debate about her style. International media quickly picked up the story. CNN ran the headline, White House press secretary overwhelms Japanese lawmaker in fiery debate, praising Leavitt's confidence and mastery of data. BBC, more neutral, wrote, The Leavitt-Aguma clash showcased stark stylistic differences, one sharp and data-driven, the other emotional but lacking depth. Japan's Asahi Shimbun expressed regret, noting Aguma's attempt to defend his stance, but his inability to overcome Leavitt's meticulous preparation. Media reactions in Japan were mixed. NHK briefly reported Aguma's concerns about Trump's policies, but acknowledged Leavitt's dominance in argument. Conservative outlets like Yomiuri Shimbun defended Aguma, praising his courage in facing a well-prepared White House opponent, while commentators on Fuji TV's evening show leaned toward Leavitt, describing her as an inspiring, bold, modern debater. Backstage, Leavitt's team celebrated, with Leavitt herself telling reporters she worked tirelessly to study every detail of Trump's policies. In a brief Fox News interview, she said, "I just wanted to show the world what Trump has done for America and its allies. Truth is the strongest weapon." Aguma, declining long interviews, sent a statement via email. "I presented my views. This debate was a chance for Japan to be heard." As the debate concluded, Leavitt became the center of attention. Karoline Leavitt's victory in the debate was celebrated not just for her triumph, but for her confident modern style. Analysts in Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal hailed her as a rising star in American politics, predicting a bigger role for her in the future. Meanwhile, Aguma, though defeated, was seen by some in Japan as a hero for daring to challenge such a formidable opponent on foreign soil. The debate was more than just a contest, it was proof of the power of preparation and conviction. The studio atmosphere settled, but the echoes of the debate continued to resonate on social media and in the press, hinting at future confrontations. Leavitt left a lasting mark as an icon of a new generation, sharp and confident, transforming dry data into compelling narratives. Her victory was more than just a debate win. It marked a turning point in how young politicians engage in global dialogue. Foreign policy experts noted that Leavitt proved youth can be a strength, defending her stance with passion and clarity. And she became a firebrand of modern politics, inspiring youth from America to Asia and beyond. Leavitt's greatest legacy was solidifying the US-Japan alliance as an unshakable cornerstone, rooted not just in mutual interest, but in enduring trust. She made the world see this relationship as a banner of unity amid volatile geopolitics. A Tokyo University scholar remarked, "Leavitt turned data into a story of partnership, elevating the alliance to new heights." Karoline Leavitt's arguments on Japan's regional role and Trump's policies became foundational reference material at prestigious universities like Yale and KO, shaping future diplomatic discussions. Diplomats praised her ability to transform numbers into compelling narratives, demonstrating the power of persuasion. In America, Leavitt was a refreshing force for Gen Z. Students at schools like Stanford held workshops to emulate her debate style, sharp data combined with an approachable yet forceful tone. One student remarked, "She made me believe youth can shape politics with truth." Leavitt became a highly sought-after speaker, with talks in Boston and Seattle attracting thousands, urging the Chi's next generation to engage in politics. Youth leadership organizations saw her as a role model, inviting her to share how to turn belief into action. Her style, which blended knowledge with passion, became a benchmark for young politicians, inspiring them to pursue truth and clarity. On the global stage, Leavitt elevated the art of debate, proving that preparation and unwavering belief in one's message could lead to victory. Nikkei Asia noted, "Leavitt won not just with arguments, but with persistence and heart." Leavitt's influence spread across young politicians in Europe, Asia, and Latin America, encouraging them to invest in knowledge and dialogue skills. International conferences hailed her ability to turn data into compelling narratives as a new standard for modern debate. From Brussels to Singapore, she was recognized as a pioneer, motivating the next generation to tackle political challenges with confidence and thorough preparation. Leavitt's debate was more than just an event. It marked a cultural milestone, reshaping global views on politics and international alliances. She proved that youth, combined with preparation and passion, can change how nations communicate. Each word she spoke was a call to action, urging young people to speak up and defend the truth. Karoline Leavitt's performance in this debate wasn't just about politics. It reflected the values and challenges of American life, especially in a polarized society where fact-based persuasion is crucial. Her sharp style, grounded in data, showcased the power of preparation and belief in one's message. She didn't just win through arguments, she inspired Gen Z by turning data into a story of unity. like when she emphasized the US-Japan alliance as a symbol of trust. From speaking at Stanford to shaping global debates, Leavitt demonstrated that youth and persistence can drive change. In today's America, where debates are often shaped by emotions or misinformation, Leavitt's story offers a practical lesson in persuasion to influence, invest in knowledge, and present ideas clearly. Instead of relying on emotional arguments, we can learn from Leavitt to prepare data, like reports or statistics, and tell a unifying story. This lesson resonates with American culture, where confidence and persuasion are key. By practicing listening, research, and presentation like Leavitt, we can not only win debates, but also build consensus and inspire action in our everyday lives. Subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like Leavitt's journey. Thank you, and see you next time.